Well, I like making food that tastes good, and I don't even mind making food that tastes bad. But if I had to choose, I think I'd pick the former. So if you want to know how to make it a little bit better, but maybe not quite as good as it maybe could be, I think that you should listen to what I'm talking about. And if you learn a little something from this, well, I hope it served a purpose, and hey, that's what we're here for. Good, better. Nailed it. Woo!
Hello, and welcome to the Cook Better podcast. My name is Corey, and welcome to episode number 22. Number 22. We're moving along, and today I'm going to be talking about Dutch oven bread. It's one of my favorite things to make, an easy thing, and it's going to be fun. We've got a few things to take care of before that. I hope you guys had a great week. I had a good week. Everything, I've got nothing to complain about. And if I did, who wants to listen to that? That's not what you're here for. So I think that, I don't know. I try to have a positive outlook on things, even when things aren't so good. I try to look at the positive. That's what I'm here for. I don't know if, we've all been around those people that are just, it's always something negative. And I can't stand that. I can't do that. And especially when we really dig into mainly, it's just, we got so many blessings, there's no need to be complaining. And I don't want to be known as somebody who complains all the time. Or, because then it's like the boy who cried wolf, right? And, but I had a good week. I got some things done around my house, and it's getting warm outside. We're being able to use the pool. I might actually get in the pool soon. My kids have been swimming, but they don't care when it was 58 degrees, they were in there. Now, granted, it wasn't for very long, but they were getting in there. My dog, I got a puppy, Fern is her name, and she's getting big. She's now up to about 55 pounds, and she's slowly learning the rules, and she's really a very good dog. She's a fox red lab, a beautiful dog, and she's just, I don't know, it's still puppy thing though. She's almost 5 months old, maybe just turned 5 months old actually. So she's getting there, but it's still, she's still a puppy, and she's going to be for a while, I suppose. Trying to get her trained up, and that's been difficult, but I'm thankful for this warm weather to be out, so she wants to hang out outside. Of course, she wanted to hang out when it was snowing. She didn't really care. But I like to hang outside more when it's a little bit warmer and not freezing cold. Don't necessarily recommend getting a puppy February 1st if you're in the northern part of anywhere where it snows and it's 10 degrees outside. Not fun to train. Anyway, this isn't about dog training. I think we need to get into something, and I did make some slight adjustments here, and I hope you like it.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, if I can direct your attention to the meals from last week.
I hope you're pumped. We're getting into the meals from last week. I think that, I was maybe 30%, maybe 40%. I don't know. Last week, it's same story, beginning of the week. Things go a little bit better for cooking some food and doing some good cooking. And as the days move forward towards the end of the week, kind of fall off the wagon a little bit. But I had, Friday Friday, my daughter had a couple of friends over from school. She's in the 4th grade, and so I've got some 10-year-olds over at my house, and they were going to be playing all night, whatever. I asked my daughter to ask her friends what they would like for dinner, and they said tacos. So that's what I made for dinner on Friday night. And my daughter had said that the one girl's favorite tacos were chorizo tacos. Now, I was excited about that because chorizo tacos, I think, are my favorite. I like a barbacoa. I like beef, I like chicken, but I like chorizo because there's some spice built in, just that extra spice built in with the meat. But I was surprised to hear that a 10-year-old had her tacos were her favorite tacos were chorizo. Yes, I can talk sometimes. And they came over, and of course I got beef just because that's preferred by my son and my wife like beef. Actually, I think my wife might prefer chicken over anything. Doesn't really matter. But then the girl said that her favorite tacos were tilapia. And my daughter kind of laughed, and I said, yeah, tilapia is a little bit different than chorizo. Very different, in fact, because tilapia is a fish and chorizo is pork. But hey, I unfortunately didn't have any fish in the fridge ready to go. Nothing at the ready. Fish tacos are some of my favorite too. Although I wouldn't really lean towards tilapia being my fish of choice if I could make that, if I'm making fish tacos. Tilapia is not necessarily going to be my first fish. I would go for a cod or a pollock or perch, or if it's something I've caught myself, bluegill, crappie, walleye, something like that. Maybe even pike. And then I would fry it up, deep fry it, and that would make a fantastic taco. You could just bake the fish and kind of flake, it'd be a healthier version, no doubt, to not deep fry and bread the fish, but something about a fried fish. I love a shrimp taco too. It's just that flavor with a slaw and some onion and cilantro and a corn tortilla, or a flour tortilla, actually. Either one would work. Sometimes I prefer a flour tortilla with fish for whatever reason. Don't know why I'm going into this too much, but anyway, I made chorizo, and that's the tacos that I had. I bought some corn tortillas. I've been making them a lot, and I really like, I think that when I go to a restaurant anyway, and they have something that's really good, I want to mimic the flavors. Some restaurants you go to and you think, well, I want to mimic it, but I want to change something else up about it, maybe just to intensify the flavor or whatever. And all the Mexican restaurants that I go to, they have the same style corn tortillas, and a lot of times you'll get 2 of them. And even if you go to a food truck with tacos or any taqueria that you go to, they've got like double corn tortillas, and they're those small round ones. I think if you've ever had them, you know what I'm talking about. And a lot of times if you buy them in the grocery store or the supermarket, you'll find them kind of on the label, it will say street taco or street taco tortilla or whatever. And so I was at that supermercado that I've been going to lately, and I picked up some pre-made, I bought some tortillas. I didn't make them myself. I like making them myself. There is a different flavor there. But these were it was great, and that's the way all these restaurants and taquerias. Now, some people do make them themselves. I'm not saying they don't. But a lot of them, at least around here, they're purchased, those Missions. I forget the brand. It wasn't Mission. But anyway, they're really good. I'm mimicking the flavors that I'm getting when I go to a Mexican restaurant, and I often will get a chorizo taco. I try to change it up and try something I haven't had before, but my fallback, if I'm just not feeling like trying something at a particular restaurant, I always go to the chorizo tacos. To me, that kind of tells me a lot. The tortillas are always very similar. It seems like but the heat, the spice, and the flavors in the chorizo, if they make it in-house, can change. And I like something with a lot of spice and a lot of bite to it. And then I'll get, and like I had this past Friday, I'll do that, the corn tortilla, the chorizo, white onion, and cilantro. And that's about it. And then have a salsa. I didn't make the salsa. I bought a salsa. Mateo's, I think, is what I had. It's a good salsa. It's not real hot. It's just got a good tomato flavor. It's one of the better rated ones on that Yuka app that I've talked about before. Just telling, doesn't have a lot of harmful ingredients. It doesn't have a ton of sodium. Chorizo itself is a fairly salty blend of seasoning in the meat. There's a fair amount of sodium in the chorizo mix, so I didn't do that. Now, so you don't need to have extra sodium in the salsa, and even if you can make it yourself. We're getting into the springtime, actually. My wife just mentioned a good buddy of mine that's got his farmer's market, goes to the farmer's market every week and sells his stuff that he grows. He just had on Facebook that he's got tomatoes coming that he's had in the greenhouse, and so I'm excited to get some of those and then maybe make some fresh salsa. And I made that beef, like I had mentioned as well, to go along with these tacos. This beef seasoning recipe was what I had talked about, I believe, last week, where I did kind of made it from scratch, but I added the tomato paste and a little bit of the beef base, and I think it was a little bit of lime juice as well into it, along with all the chili powder and the garlic powder and the oregano and cumin and all the other stuff. So I just really do like the flavors of that. Now, the beef base is the only thing that I'm questioning whether or not I'll continue to do that. And the only reason for that is, and I don't know, I haven't looked at the ingredients of it yet. I just don't know what that beef base is. It's a concentrate of some kind, and it might be fine. There might not be much in it. But to me, it seems like there's probably some added chemicals and stuff like that. As you'll see here, it's not that I never eat anything with chemicals, but if I can there's not really a need for that. It does provide a good extra flavor, but maybe it's not something that I have to necessarily use. And if I can eliminate it, I will. I've got a little bit left in the container. The stuff keeps for a long time in the refrigerator. When it's gone, I might just say, hey, that's good. It might be good for every great once in a while, but not something I need to use consistently. But hard to beat tacos. And this was a Friday night, not a Tuesday night. You all know how I feel about Taco Tuesdays. This was on a Friday, so we're all in the clear. The next night, what did I have? Scrambled eggs and pancakes. I'm not a huge breakfast for dinner person, and I don't know why. I don't really eat breakfast for breakfast all that often. I need to get into that because eating breakfast is something to get your body moving and get your metabolism going, I suppose. I don't even know if I was ever a breakfast person when I was in high school or anything. Maybe a bowl of cereal every once or whatever, but my mom had to wake me up, shake me awake like 10 times before I ever got out of bed. So I don't know that I had much time to get ready to eat anything in the mornings, even when I was in high school. But breakfast is, I really enjoy eggs. My preferred method of egg is to poach. I really like a poached egg and toast. My son and my daughter both wanted scrambled eggs, and I didn't really feel like doing two different type of egg style. I'm not a short order cook, and I'm not opposed to it all the time, but this night I just didn't feel like making two different types of eggs, so I made scrambled eggs. Now, when I make scrambled eggs, there's a lot of discussion in the making of eggs or by people, and you can find many YouTube videos arguing multiple ways to make eggs, scrambled eggs rather. And I used that Happy Egg Company eggs. It's amazing. I just saw all of a sudden they're popping up. I've seen, maybe because I talked about it and everything listens to you or whatever, but I've seen more people talking about this company that in these eggs than I have in a long time. I listened to Armchair Expert with Dax Shepard, and he has an ad lately in the middle of his podcast where he actually reads an ad for the company. And they are really good eggs. The yolk inside, I don't think I talked too much about it because I hadn't used many of them, but the yolk is orange. And my daughter, after I made the scrambled eggs, had said to me, did you put food coloring in this? Because I have taken, like, my corn tortillas, I have in the mix before put turmeric in with, just to get them a little more yellow. And I've seen that before where people will do, you can use blue corn and make a blue corn tortilla or anything like that. Or red if you put a little paprika in it. You can just change the color. It's kind of fun to do. And turmeric is, in some way, shape, or form, got health benefits to it. So if I want something to be a little more yellow, I'll throw turmeric in it. And turmeric doesn't have a ton of flavor on its own. There's an earthy flavor there, but it's relatively mild, and you're not going to taste it in the final dish necessarily. But the color is really, really vibrant depending on how much you add. Anyway, the egg yolks were so orange from these eggs that I bought at Walmart, and they're the free range ones that I bought, which means should mean that they're out and they're able to eat some bugs and stuff like that. And just whatever they forage, so to speak. And so that helps with the color of the yolk. It's just a richer color, and just because of a more wide variety of a diet. When you have that pale yellow color, you know that these chickens have only been eating corn or grain or whatever feed, that one single thing. There's no variety in their diet. But I didn't add turmeric to the scrambled eggs. They were just very yellow because of the quality of the egg. So I can't say enough about, I don't know a ton about the company, but I'm very impressed so far, very impressed with the quality of the egg itself. I definitely recommend purchasing them if you're looking for a cheaper, and they were, like I said, they were one of the cheapest ones. Now, I don't know if it's something like introduction to them, they're going to be cheap just till people say, oh, I like these eggs, and the price will slowly rise like a lot of things do. I hope that's not the case, but anyway, give them a try. But the scrambled egg discussion can go a few different ways. There are some people just do straight up egg. Now, I'm not in that camp. I want a liquid in there of some kind. And then you have people who go straight water and just have water and egg. And I've done this, and I get a fluffy a fluffy egg. I personally use milk, and I prefer whole milk. I wouldn't use a cream because cream has a sweetness to it. Like heavy cream has a sweetness to it that changes the flavor. I don't want a sweetness in my eggs. But I do like a whole milk. And that I've heard the argument that if you use water, you get fluffier eggs than if you use milk. And I've never had that be an issue. Now, I do use a fork in the bowl. I'll pour milk in there, and I whip it with a fork in the bowl. And I whip them pretty hard and get a lot of air in there. Basically, I'm almost get it to the point where I've got a froth going at the top because I'm whipping them so much, or, incorporating that much air into it, and then pouring them in. And that's all I put in there. I will put salt in with, do some kosher salt or whatever in my scrambled egg mixture. But that's it. Milk, salt, and the egg. And I just like a little bit of creaminess, but I don't want a sweetness, if that makes any sense, is why I use it. And I've done it with water too, and water's good. The egg's very pronounced. And I pull it out. I think the key is I don't overmix the eggs. You got to let them. When I was younger, I just constantly stir nonstop the scrambled eggs. And you are making scrambled eggs, so they're going to be. But I like to kind of fold and let the bottom cook a little bit almost like if you were to make an omelet in a way, where you're kind of letting it and then break it apart. So I've got just these bigger chunks of the egg. I'm scrambling them. I'm not making an omelet. I'm scrambling them, but I also want them. I don't want a bunch of little pieces. I like to be able to grab a bigger chunk of egg. And I personally will pull them off when just that last bit of sheen is still at the top. And they continue to cook if, you can take them off the pan, but they're all bundled together in a bowl or whatever, however you're doing it, or just leaving it in the pan. And they're going to cook a little bit more as they sit. I don't want like runny eggs per se, but I don't want dry eggs, if that makes any sense. So that's kind of when I pull them off right before they're all completely cooked. That way I don't get a dry egg. Now, my wife and I will cook it this way too. She likes to put like a big spoonful of cottage cheese in with the egg after whipping it. I guess you got to incorporate that cottage cheese as well. There is a really good flavor that cottage cheese gives to a scrambled egg. I would definitely recommend it if you've never had it, to give it a try. The only thing I'll say with it, the caveat there, is that it's really hard to get rid of the moisture. There's a lot of water in the cottage cheese, or a lot of moisture, and the amount of time it takes to boil off or steam or cook off that moisture, so it's not all very liquidy, so to speak. If you wait and you're doing that in the pan, you end up with a rubbery egg, but you still get the flavor of the cottage cheese. The taste is there, it's just a textural thing. Or you can just, once the eggs are cooked, you could basically tip the pan and almost strain off or dump it in a cheesecloth or to get rid of some of that liquid. I like the flavor of it. I don't like that when I put it on the plate, it's a little bit more, I get that water kind of leaking out. So that's the only reason I stay away from, I would stay away from that for me personally. My wife and my kids love it. The flavor's good. It is a good flavor, just not necessarily the way that I want my scrambled eggs. And then pancakes. I've made them from scratch. This time I did not. This time I made it from a box mix. Of course, it just calls for mix it with water. I added more than water. I don't even know if I used water, to be honest. I used milk instead of water, and I add some cinnamon. I did throw a little bit of salt in, just a sprinkle of salt, and I also added about a tablespoon of sugar. I don't know that you should add sugar to it, but it just does give a little more sweetness to the pancake. I love doing a pecan pancake. I did not with this time, but those are the ingredients I had, made pancakes, and it was really good. The next day was Mother's Day. Mother's Day was this last Sunday, and we went to, what did we do? Oh, we went to my grandparents' cottage. My wife and I were both busy all Sunday morning. I had to play music, and my wife had to work, and then we went to my grandparents' cottage, and we just did some brats for lunch, which was nice. It was a beautiful day. And then my in-laws came over Sunday night. I made what I've been making quite often lately, and that was the chicken breast with the Dijon cream sauce. Again, it's such a simple recipe, very easy. Saute some onion in butter, or wait till it gets translucent. You've got your butter and your onion. Then you add your garlic. Careful not to burn the garlic. Kind of stir that around once the onions have softened quite a bit. And we've got a real fine dice on the onion. I do, because I'm making a sauce, and so I don't want that. I don't want big chunks of onion in a sauce. I don't go as far as straining it or running it through a cheesecloth, although I've thought about doing that, because then you have the flavor, but you don't have the chunks. It's a great way to have a nice smooth sauce. if I was, if it was a restaurant situation or I was wanting to get real fancy, I would do that. Again, it looks real fancy. And how do you get such a nice smooth sauce with all this flavor? What's in all this? All you do is run it through a cheesecloth to take the big chunks out. You still have the same flavors with the chunks, but that makes it look better. I should say before you melt down or do the butter and the onion, I always sear the chicken. The chicken breast has got salt, pepper, garlic on it, and maybe I'll throw paprika on there for a little bit of color. In theory, a little bit of flavor. Again, I don't think it adds that much. I'll sear both sides of the breast and take them out of the pan. I'm using a cast iron pan. Take them out and set them on a plate. And then so I've got some of that chicken flavor in the pan before I even add the onion and the butter and the garlic. Once you do that and it's softened, I'll put some lemon juice. Use fresh lemon, best way to go. Maybe even a little bit of zest if you want. I didn't have fresh lemon. I had the bottle of lemon juice, so I squeezed some of that in there to get that acid flavor. That also helps to deglaze the pan a little bit. If the butter does initially, if you've got a little char from the chicken, but now we've kind of deglazed the pan a little bit with the lemon juice, helps to do that. Then you pour heavy cream in there, and then after that's in there, mix everything around, put your chicken breast back in. I did throw some fresh parsley in as well into that cream sauce, and that just a little bit of the Dijon mustard to get some extra flavor from that. Now, all these, then you take that and put it in the oven at like 425 for 20 minutes or until your chicken breast, 15 minutes. I usually check it at about 14 minutes. I don't want to overcook my chicken. You're going to have a hot sauce that's going to continue to cook as it sits in the pan. I just put the cast iron pan on the table and just pull directly from that. You could pull your chicken off, slice it up, separate the sauce, like I'd said, strain the sauce, and then pour the sauce over as just if you're doing a more creative presentation, and then a little fresh parsley at the very end after you pull it out of the oven, just sprinkled over top of everything to get that freshness. And then I had roasted broccoli and cauliflower along in with that. And again, that's just cauliflower, tossed in a little bit of olive oil, salt and pepper. If you've got Parmesan to shave over the top right at the end, it just adds a little bit of flavor. This time I didn't have it. Still really good. The next day, I had a mashed potatoes, some peas, and a beef, kind of like a beef and gravy mixture. This was a meal that was made for me. It was instant mashed potatoes, peas, and this gravy mixture, I think, was like a store-bought frozen beef and gravy thing. That's what that was. And then we had Chick-fil-A coming up the next time. I love a chicken sandwich, and I got their spicy chicken. I want extra flavor. I don't want just plain chicken. And it was good. I mean, it's Chick-fil-A. How are you going to go wrong with Chick-fil-A? The next night, I did macaroni and cheese and ham sandwiches. We were busy doing stuff and had a lot going on. Other excuses I have for not actually cooking dinner or making something, but it was good. Macaroni and cheese and the ham sandwich. I mean, as good as a boxed macaroni. It was a boxed macaroni and cheese. I didn't make it from scratch, I know. But I did add extras to it. More healthy stuff, right? I added extra butter, extra American cheese, all the good stuff. And then to further the store-bought junk, that the next night we had frozen pizza. So, you win some, you lose some. Like I said, I suppose that's about 50% of the meals I made myself from scratch and were decent health-wise as far as that's concerned. I mean, whatever, whole ingredients, that kind of thing. Room to improve, not the best in the world, but hey, it's something, right? we better probably get into it, I guess. Yeah. Dutch oven bread. That's what we're going to talk about today. And by we, I mean me, with you listening so patiently as I discuss things for a half hour about food I've made. I like a Dutch oven bread. And the reason why I like it is multidimensional. Really, actually, probably twofold, or other things that mean multiple stuff. I like the simplicity of a Dutch oven bread. That's not my main reason. I really like the flavor of it. I also very much like the flavor of a sourdough bread, and you would probably make both in a Dutch oven, but I'm talking about a yeast bread, not sourdough. I don't have the patience or the knowledge, frankly, to make sourdough bread. There will be a time here, hopefully soon, where I will have somebody on that makes sourdough bread. I know a few people that have been making sourdough bread for years, different kinds. I think the hard part is going to be picking who I'm going to talk to about it, because I know quite a few people. It seems to be a growing trend with the sourdough. And I don't know off the top of my head, or I'm not going to Google it at the moment, what the health benefits and differences might be between sourdough and a yeast bread. But I do know that anything that I'm going to make, or that you are going to make from scratch at home, is going to be much better than the stuff that we buy from the store. Now, a loaf of bread, this is easily used. This bread can be used as sandwich bread. It could be perfect for a grilled cheese. It could be used for, I don't know, if you could even do it with I add flavor, but you could easily just basically turn it into a white bread and use it for peanut butter and jelly. If we're used to store-bought white bread that people that aren't from the United States, when people from Europe come over and they call it a dessert because of how sweet it is, I think we're almost immune to the amount of sugar that gets put in all of our food, that we don't even notice that it's sweet, because compared to the other things that we eat, it's not. But if somebody from France comes over, or whatever, Italy, and they try our store-bought bread, they think it's a dessert. It's insane the amount of sugar that's added to all these things. And really, with this bread, there is sugar added, but it's one of 7 ingredients that's in this. And honestly, 7 ingredients is if you use a couple different ones. I like to make a jalapeno cheddar bread. And if you take the jalapeno and cheddar out and just make a white bread, we're talking 5 ingredients. And compared to the stuff we buy at the grocery store, I haven't even counted yet, but I think I will. I think I'll do that before this podcast is over, and we'll compare the two. So the other thing I do like about this bread is that it's very simple. I'm not a baker. I do bake, but I'm not. Baking isn't something that I'm confident in, at least with a lot of things. I've made some good stuff, and it's starting to turn out. For many years, baking was difficult for me. My cookies would be sloppy or spread out so much, or be rock hard, or if I made a cake, it would be dry, or if I made a bread of some kind, it just wouldn't turn out for whatever reason. I think I've paid more attention to detail, and I've learned things, and why is what you have to do with a cookie, for instance. Cream that butter and sugar together first and really mix it together, and don't melt your butter and pour it in. Something that may seem obvious to somebody who's made cookies for a while, but it wasn't for the new person, and I'll do a cookie episode at some point. But this is just a simple bread recipe and very easy. And we've only got, like I said, 5 ingredients. We need flour, sugar, salt, yeast, and water. That's it. And if you want to add some flavor to it, some rosemary, some garlic, garlic rosemary bread is very good too. Or, like I said, jalapeno cheddar. Side note, for whatever reason, I just found out yesterday from the friend of mine that sells bread at the market that they can't put cheese in the bread this year and sell it at the market like they could in years prior for whatever reason. I didn't find an answer to that. So if you're making it to sell, hopefully you know all the regulations, and I don't know why that changed. But anyway, in case anybody cares. But 5 ingredients, that's it. And you're going to take your flour. The recipe that I follow, you got 3 cups of flour, 1.5 teaspoons of sugar, 2 teaspoons of salt, 2.5 teaspoons of yeast, and 1 1/3 cup of water. And it's very simple because you take all of those ingredients and mix them in the bowl. Now, you could do the water and sugar and yeast. I use instant yeast, but you could do those in a bowl separate. And kind of the whole reason you would do them separate is just to make sure that your yeast is alive. Because when you do that with the warm water, I believe it's between 90 and 110 degrees, you bloom that yeast, and if it doesn't froth, then you know you've got dead yeast. But you don't have to do that in this case. You can just mix it all together, and you're going to have a sticky, messy dough. But that's the way it is supposed to be, or it works for whatever reason. But after you mix all those things together, get them all incorporated, all 5 things, you just cover it with a damp towel or put it in a warm place. There is a proof setting on a lot of ovens now. If you have a newer, I don't even know if newer is necessarily true, but maybe in the last 10 years, I don't know. A lot of stoves ovens have the proof setting on them, which just keeps it, I don't know, maybe at 100 degrees, if that. So you can set your stove to that, or your oven, and let it proof for about an hour. And then after that hour, you take it out. What do you got to do? Let's see. I think, you line your Dutch oven with some parchment paper. Is this 100% necessary? No, but it makes things so much easier because it's hard to get the dough out and into the bowl without it. And it also keeps your dough from potentially sticking to your Dutch oven. But if you take a piece of parchment paper, put a little flour on it, and then take the dough out of the bowl after that hour, set it on the paper, and you can start to form kind of a round shape, maybe stretch out the sides, fold it over, and kind of knead it, so to speak. I don't know if so to speak is correct. That's what you're doing. You're kind of kneading it. You're folding it over, shaping it into a ball. Should be a little less sticky now, easier to form, and get it in the rough shape of a ball. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then once you got to fold it into a ball, flip it over so you got a smooth side up, cover it again with a towel for another 20 minutes, and then you take that once it's covered. Excuse me. You let it rise for 20 minutes, and then just lift that parchment paper, put the parchment paper and the dough into the Dutch oven, and it just makes it easy to lift. Set it in there, score the top and whatever, a little X at the top, or just to help let some steam out. You can get fancy, do some designs, whatever. And this is just one line, do an X, put the lid on and bake it for 30 minutes. After that 30 minutes, pull it out, take the lid off. This is where, if I'm making a jalapeno cheddar, I will add some shredded cheddar cheese and some real thin sliced jalapeno on the top as well. For me personally, I suppose you could do it in the very beginning, but I don't want that cheese like over melted and necessary. I mean, you do want it melted, but I just do it at this point. After you do that, pull it out. If you don't have anything you need to add on top, that's fine. Just take the lid off and put it in for another 10 minutes or so, and it will be, or until it gets golden brown. And then that's it. You remove it from the oven, take the bread out using the parchment paper. You got an oversized piece of parchment paper. We're not making a cartouche, which would be just a small piece of parchment paper that sits in the bottom. We want this paper to go up the sides, and you can just grab onto that and lift it out and set it on a cooling rack. And that's it. You're done. Well, you probably should wait a good 10, 20 minutes before cutting into it. But, sometimes a nice hot slice. I like, hot, let the butter melt. You can always heat it up again after it's cut, or after it's cooked and been cut and cooled down. That's all there is to it. I mean, it's really that simple. I don't know really how you could have a bread that's simpler than that. Even banana bread or some of the quick breads are more steps than that. It might sound like a lot when I was saying it, but it's very intuitive. I mean, you mix all your ingredients together, let it sit for an hour, form it into a ball, sit for 20 more minutes, put it in the oven. If that seems simpler than the last 10 minutes of my description, that's the summary. And very easy. Again, with a bread, I want to have a lot of whatever flavor I'm making. I don't want a garlic rosemary flavored bread that has one of the bites out of the entire slice taste like garlic and rosemary. I want every bite to taste like that. If I have a jalapeno cheddar, same thing. I would incorporate that into the dough mixture, and then also I like to have a little bit on top, and it looks good too. Now, this bread's going to last, assuming you don't eat it all in a very short amount of time, it'll last, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 days, something like that. On the shelf. Again, the stuff we get from the grocery store can last weeks because of the preservatives and everything that are in it. And I just want to read, just to compare. And I think this is an important thing and something I have to constantly remind myself about. And just a fair forewarning, I don't know that I can pronounce all these words. I don't know what every word means. If there's a certain word that I know, like, nope, I'm not even going to try to say what I might know, because I don't know. But here is the list of ingredients off of the back of a Wonder Bread Classic White. This is a sandwich bread. Again, the bread I just described makes a fantastic sandwich bread, and even better than a Wonder Bread for sure, with a meat and cheese sandwich or a grilled cheese or whatever. So here we go. Give me time. See if you can count past 5, and we'll see which one might have the better ingredients. Unbleached enriched flour, parentheses, wheat flour, malted barley flour, niacin, reduced iron, thiamine, monotrate, riboflavin, folic acid, end parentheses. So we'll just allow that to be 1. Water, sugar, yeast. Contains 2% or less of each of the following, but it's still in here. Calcium carbonate, wheat gluten, soybean oil, salt, dough conditioners, parentheses, contains 1 or more of the following: sodium sterol lactylate, calcium sterol lactylate, monoglycerides, mono and diglycerides, distilled monoglycerides, calcium peroxide, calcium iodate, datum, exfoliated mono and diglycerides, enzymes, absorbic acid, and parentheses, vinegar, monocalcium phosphate, citric acid, cholecalciferol, which is vitamin D3, soy lecithin, calcium propionate, which is to retard spoilage, is what it says on here. Contains wheat and soy. Yeah, that's just a lot. I don't know. Is it necessary? No. If we're willing to do things on our own and make it from home, right? So that's a challenge I'm at all the time. And we have the knowledge. I don't think that anybody's arguing to the contrary. We have the knowledge of these things that we don't need that are in our food, whether we understand what they are or not all the time. You know, it doesn't really matter. I think we know that if we made it for ourselves, that'd be healthier. It's just a matter of incorporating that into our daily practice or weekly practice or something like that. I've got to get better myself of making the bread and eating it. I eat sandwich bread that I buy from the store all the time, quite often, more often than I make bread. And so this is part of the challenge for me is I almost make bread as a treat. And then, and there are more sandwich bread recipes out there that are like that 5 ingredients that take the shape and do more of a loaf shape that's similar to what we would buy at the supermarket, more than this Dutch oven bread is, and with a more similar textures that you can make if that's the thing you're going for, or what you would prefer to get something a little closer to that. But anyway, I think that the treat should be the store-bought, so to speak, and then the homemade should be the norm and not the other way around, which is the way it is for me currently. So, again, I'm trying to challenge myself. I'm hoping that putting it out there will get me to change a few habits, and that's kind of what this is all about. I need to do just a little bit better with that. But that's what I do. That's that Dutch oven yeast bread. I think it tastes fantastic. Give it a try if you've never done it. It's a very good bread for the beginner. The expert bread maker loves it because it is just a good bread, but it is a simple enough recipe and almost impossible to, I don't know. If I can make it successfully my first time, then it is something that anybody could do. I am confident, 100% confident that I could have my son, who has never even no idea what's in a bread or whatever, could make this on his own if I just told him the ingredients and said, mix it all together, set it in a bowl, cover it for an hour. All right, take it out, shape it into a ball. We're going to cover it again, and we're throwing it in the Dutch oven, and that's it. Easy. Anybody could do it. It's just give it a try. So that's my challenge to you. It's a challenge to myself. I hope this helped. Thank you for listening. Any comments, anything you want me to talk about in the future, let me know. I'd love to, and it'd be helpful for me, honestly, to have suggestions on what you would like me to talk about. Maybe there's something that you had an epiphany on that, or just learned that you think is really great and you would love to hear me talk about. I'd be interested in entertaining any ideas, and maybe it's something that I've never done that I need to get into and give a try myself. So thanks for listening, and I will talk to you next time.